You know, a lot of questions coming through the comment section, so let's tackle some of them. Oh, guys. It's good to be back. I've been away for over 4 weeks. It's been a minute. I've been out traveling. I've been doing lots of things, both work and play. Had a family wedding in Latvia. Had some work to do in Germany. I was in Austria and Switzerland. I've been about. Like, I love going to do those things, and it's important to go do those things, to see new things, to be inspired by new places and sights. But it's good to be back in the workshop, I'm not gonna lie. And the trip was lovely, thanks for asking. That all being said, I've been out of the shop for several weeks and I'm just getting back into the flow. I only got home a couple of days ago. So in lieu of having the time to make a build video this week, I thought this was a perfect opportunity to answer some of your comments. Now, I may not have the opportunity to get to answering all of your comments in the comment section, but I do see them, and I deeply, deeply appreciate the comments that you guys do leave. They are overwhelmingly positive, they are overwhelmingly engaged, they are asking questions about the process and the thought. I am so, so grateful that you guys are interested in the work that I'm doing. You know, there's feedback on there that we could say is critical feedback, but I think it leans more towards just angry old man ranting on the internet kind of style. Critical feedback is necessary and good, but you know, you know how the internet do. So I've pulled a handful of comments out of here. We're just gonna go through them and I'm gonna try to answer some of those questions that are oft repeated and or I just liked. So let's get into it. I tried out your finish mix and applied it yesterday. Today the piece is still sticky to the touch. I used Danish oil, mineral spirits, and a Minwax poly. Could it be that the poly is bad? Yeah, polyurethane does go bad. So there's a high probability that the urethane's been sitting on that shelf maybe a year or so and it starts to tack over. It'll get that skin, you'll see it when you open up the can, and that can be a sign that the urethane doesn't want to fully cure. Now it should be okay for about a year, but if it's still sticky, the only thing that's really causing that stickiness is the urethane not curing. So what you can do is just take mineral spirits and a really soaked rag and wipe the whole thing down and get as much of that material off as possible. Give it a couple of days to rest and then reapply. Remix with some new urethane and then reapply and it should be fine. Can one use Minwax finishing paste as an alternative? Absolutely. There's no reason you can't use pretty much any wax that you want to. I'm no chemist, but to my understanding, the Minwax finishing paste is not really chemically all that different from the Liberon paste that I use. I've also used, Butcher's Block wax? Butcher's Block wax. Yes, I said that correctly. Yeah, whatever wax you got lying around, it's probably gonna mix up just fine. As a bonus note, an oil-based wax, a petroleum-based wax, like your Carnauba waxes or the Minwax finishing paste or the Liberon paste waxes, all of those are going to dissolve in mineral spirits or turpentine, whereas the beeswax doesn't really dissolve at room temperature very well. Ideally, you would heat it up in a double boiler to really blend all of those ingredients. So just use a paste wax, you're more than fine. Do you use a specific brand of blades for the table saw, the bandsaw, the chop saw? Yes, my favorite blade for the table saw is going to be the Woodworker 2 from Forest. It's not cheap. It's like 125, 150 bucks. There's nothing wrong with the Freud Diablos. Like I've used them in the past. I still use them from time to time. So if that's all you have access to or if that's all you can afford, there's nothing wrong with those blades. Keep going with them. The reason I choose to go with the Forest 2 most of the time is because number one, I think it's a higher quality blade. Number two, it's less expensive to resharpen a blade than it is to buy a new blade every time. So if you're buying a Freud or a Diablo every few months, it's gonna run you 60 to 70 to 80 bucks every time you do that. Whereas if I get my blade resharpened by Forest, it's gonna cost me like 15 or 20 bucks, maybe 25 bucks at the most. So it will eventually pay itself off. Now for a bandsaw, I've not really found a great blade. More or less all of the blades that I've used over the years have kind of been of an equal to lesser quality. Like there's no blade that I'm like, this is the best bandsaw blade on the market. But that's just me. I'm sure people have a different opinion. Bandsaw blades, in my opinion, you know, what kind of whiskey are you drinking? Lots of different kinds. It depends on the day. Am I drinking a bourbon? Am I drinking a scotch? Am I sharing with a friend? Am I drinking, just having a sip? Like, what's the situation here? With 49 years in cabinet making, you're a fool if you think there's just one finish. Fair. This comes back to helpful critique versus just ranting on the internet. This kind of toes the line a little bit. He's absolutely right. You would be a fool to think there is just one finish. However, this is the internet, dog. Saying this is one finish of many that you use and this would be applicable to, like, that doesn't make for a good video title. So yes, this is the finish that I use for most of my work. Absolutely. Is it the only finish I use? No, and I say that in the video, and I say that in multiple other videos. There's other options available to you. This is just the one that I use most often. Okay, color me a fool. You know, like, I don't... what it is. Dude, you look like a dark-haired Conor McGregor. Are you just saying all bearded people look the same? Like, I mean, listen, hey, I'll take it, you know? Conor McGregor. Colin McGregor? Who's Colin McGregor? I thought Conor McGregor's the fighter, right? Now I gotta Google this. Oh boy. Colin McGregor. Are we talking about Ewan McGregor's brother? I'm gonna assume you meant Conor McGregor. Yeah, you gotta have meant Conor McGregor. I'm gonna take it as a compliment, even though he is wildly insufferable. He's also very successful and in good shape. So I'm gonna take that as a compliment. I appreciate your content. I did want to mention though, when you are teaching about rails and styles, you spell styles like style, S-T-Y-L-E. Not to be hypercritical, I'm just a teacher as well. See, now this is good critical feedback. This is somebody who is giving you information, or giving me information, I suppose, without being an ass clown about it. So, thank you. I know that you spell it S-T-Y-L-E, but for whatever reason, my brain never gets it right. Never. In 15 years, I just always get it wrong. I don't know why. I can't tell you why my brain mixes it up. I'm human. I'm gonna make mistakes, you know? It's the nature. I'm struggling with this. First, I started watching this guy because he offers practical advice. He tells us newbies not to waste our money on tools we don't need. Then I see he's using something called a Shaper Origin, which I suppose is a fancy CNC type routing machine which costs huge amounts of money to form a simple insert on his workbench. Why not use a chisel to form a relatively simple planing stop? Or is this simply another gear channel dressed up to look like traditional woodworking? That is a fair and excellent question. My goal with this channel is twofold. Number one, to bring you guys along in my process as a professional furniture designer and maker, so you can get a sense of what it's like to work with clients. The other component of this channel, I hope, is the educational component, to encourage you guys that you don't need to have all of the things that I have to start woodworking. You don't need to spend $15,000 on equipment in order to make a table for your home, or a box for your niece, or whatever the situation is. Those two things sometimes are going to butt heads. Anytime you're trying to teach two things, they're not always going to coagulate perfectly. They're going to be dissonant sometimes. And when it comes to something like the Shaper Origin or Festool or whatever else, the equipment that I have in my shop, these are pieces of equipment that I've purchased and or been gifted that help me be more efficient, that allow me to make things more accurately, more quickly, more profitably. Let's take the example of the inlay in the bench, as he mentions. You could absolutely do that by hand. You can do that with nothing more than a chisel. But as the years go by, I'm interested in doing that kind of hard labor less and less, and the object at the end becoming more and more my priority. So, do you need an Origin? Absolutely not. Is it nice to have one? Absolutely. Does it make my work more efficient and therefore allow me to be more profitable as a professional furniture maker? Yes, it does. So it's absolutely a fair question, and I'm glad you asked it. I hope my use of those machines doesn't deter you from grappling with the information I'm trying to give you guys as an educator. It's just that some of those pieces of equipment are going to come through as a necessity of being a professional. I've been learning how to make a thing. Now I think it's time to learn how to make a thing look good. Feels like a big goal to set. Time to get to work. Stay awesome. This makes me happy. This is a great comment for a number of reasons. Number one, as a teacher, it makes me happy that you guys are watching my videos and taking inspiration away. Like, I got goosebumps right now. Taking inspiration away to go be better, to go try to make the world a more beautiful place by making beautiful objects. And that you guys are inspired by that to go do the same, that makes me so happy. Makes me so happy. But also, this is a thing that I've grappled with as a teacher for many years. When I first started teaching, I had no experience teaching. I just knew how to make objects and I knew how to interact with young people, and I smashed the two together. What I had hoped to do was to teach them to make and to design simultaneously. What I learned is that they are two separate processes, and it is very difficult to conflate the two into one. What I found ultimately was the most successful approach was to learn how to make a thing and then learn how to manipulate that thing or design the thing. So I think you're right on the path. Like, I think this is, in my experience with the students that I taught, the most successful path. Learn how to make a thing and then learn how to make a thing beautiful. I love that. I think it's perfect. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Stay awesome. Could you post the rules from the background? I found them interesting, but didn't have all showing. So the poster of these rules is something that I had when I was teaching in my workshop, and I bought another one and I put it up in my workshop because it's important to remind myself of these rules from time to time. And I think they're really good for you guys to know as well. These rules were made up by Sister Coretta Kent, who used to be an art teacher at Immaculate Heart College. And I love her story and I love her rules. These rules I think are brilliant for any creative space. So very quickly, rule 1, find a place you trust and then try trusting it for a while. Every one of these rules is friggin' brilliant, by the way. Find a place you trust and then just try being there for a little while. Give it a chance. See what happens. Rule 4, consider everything an experiment. This is one, I am going to die on this hill. This is maybe my biggest mantra. Everything I do, and I say this to clients right up front, everything I do is an experiment, it is an attempt, and I cannot guarantee you that it'll be good, bad, or ugly. What I can guarantee you is the thing that I am making you in the moment is going to be the best possible thing that I can make in that moment. And I need that freedom to be able to experiment, because brilliant things can come out of experimentation, but if you're afraid to take a risk, you're never going to do anything interesting. Rule 7, the only rule is work. Guys, every rule is so good. I haven't read these in a while, and it's getting me so excited again. Do the work because you never know where it'll lead. If you just start walking, even when not knowing where it leads, it will go somewhere. You will end up someplace, and that place might be really bloody interesting. So do the work. I think these are rules not just for the creative space, but rules for life. They're brilliant. I love them. Go buy yourself a poster. I'll leave a link down below. You must go through a lot of wood to find just the right grain. Do you make those decisions before you go to the lumber yard, or do you just buy a ton and look through it and make decisions then? That's an excellent question. It's a little bit of both. Yes, there is a lot of waste when you're considering grain direction and book matching and doing all of these things. That's absolutely true. Many of those scraps can be used for other things, and I think I'm pretty efficient with wood, right? Like, I would consider probably 10 to 20% waste maximum. When I go to a lumber yard, I often have an idea in mind, and then I can try to find material that is maybe 10 to 20% larger than that piece. I'm attempting to be as economical as I can with a piece. However, there are also times where I purchase a stack of wood because it's on sale or because it just looks so incredibly beautiful, and then you just hope you can find something to do with it. So I work in both of those ways. And I have a rule that the object always comes first. And so if that means sacrificing 25% of a board in order to make the object perfect, or as close to perfect as I can, that's a thing I'm willing to do. Then you can always take those scraps to a campfire and sit around and drink some beers with friends.
No, I don't want to spoil your fun. You're having a good time, you know. I'm just saying it's idiotic what you're doing.
Curious how you use the French curve in laying out your design. Oh, guys, the French curve is one of the most underrated tools in the contemporary workshop. Folks don't break out a French curve very often anymore, but I tell you what, guys, when you're doing drawings, when you're trying to fair in a curve on a piece and you're just trying to find that right line, these tools, invaluable. As to how I use them, most often I just take these directly onto my workpiece and I find the curve that feels right, and then I trace that line. Might make a template if I need to, but usually, most often I should say, I'm taking these directly onto my workpiece and then just finding the line that works. I need a 45-minute video on what you just did. The gap you left for expansion. Is that standard? The thickness of the bottom. Why does it look like 3/4 of an inch? I'm a new hobbyist and entirely too much to learn. Also, I do like the how and why within the same video, but I'm biased because I've yet to dislike your videos. That's very kind of you to say, and I appreciate that. Now, there's a lot of questions in here. Honestly, each one of these could be an entire 10 to 15 minute video, so I'll try to compress it. The gap I left for expansion. There's a lot going on there. There are equations that you can use that you can find online to help you calculate which species, and depending on whether it's rift sawn, quarter sawn, flat sawn, et cetera, how much those will move depending on what region you're in the United States or abroad. So there's a lot happening there. I would say a rough rule of thumb is kind of every 6 inches leave an eighth of an inch of movement, but that's a wild oversimplification. As far as whether or not that's standard, kinda. The thickness of the bottom, why does it look like 3/4 of an inch? All right, without getting too deep into this, I never use 3/4 of an inch if I can avoid it. And 99% of the time I can avoid it. 3/4 of an inch is so ubiquitous that it looks manufactured, and I want to avoid that. So I'll use 11/16, I'll use 5/8, I'll use 7/8, I'll use 5/8, etc. That particular piece for the bottom is at 7/8. I think there's something about that that gives things a little bit more of a handmade feel, just because it's a little bit different from standardization. Oh, and last but certainly not least, I don't know who made that mug for you, but I'm so envious. A lot of comments and questions about the mug. She's a beaut, Clark. This was made by my buddy David Bowen. He is a fantastic potter. He's just a goofball. I love his work. I've always loved his work. Go support him. He's a great dude. His work is fantastic. If you want a mug like this, I'll link him down below. So friends, that's that for this week. I hope this was interesting. I hope it was informational. I hope you found it helpful. Obviously, I didn't get to all of the comments, but I do see all of the comments, and I really do appreciate them, because as this channel continues to grow, it's really wonderful to see how much you guys are engaged with the work, with the channel, with the videos. It all coagulates into something really special. If you want me to answer specific questions in the future, drop it down below here so that I can answer it in a future video. If you like this format, if you don't, tell me to buzz off and get back to actually cutting wood. But for now, I'm gonna go do that because my niece's birthday is on Saturday, the day that you guys are watching this, and I gotta go make her a birthday present. So it's time for me to go do that. Friends, in the meantime, go make a thing. Catch y'all next week. Cheers.